Nice to meet you. Pleasure.
You're starting this week in the Bronx. How's it been so far?
Oh, we're halfway through now. It's going very, very well. Really, really interesting in the sense of talking to a lot of Bronxites about their concerns, getting some good ideas, and just having a chance to meet with leaders of the Bronx and really focus on the concerns of people here. It's really helpful.
This kind of gives you a chance to just listen to the people that are here in our borough, especially with the resource fair, and you have the town hall meeting too. What kind of suggestions or things are they saying to you, and how do you then take that and then make policy out of it?
A lot of times people will talk about their own situation, their own block, their own family, something they're experiencing, and what I do typically is I talk to the different commissioners, from whichever agency it is, to ask them, how are you going to handle a situation like that? What can you do? Do you have the tools you need now, or do you have to do something different? So those real live examples help us to figure out if we're approaching things the right way. Sometimes I ask a commissioner, what are we going to do about this problem? They have a real immediate answer. It makes sense, and that proves to me that we're positioned properly. Other times we don't have a good answer, and that says, you know what, maybe we need to go back and think things through again. And a lot of times what I want to happen when I hear from a constituent with a concern, if we don't have a good answer, I want the city agency people to go out and see for themselves and figure out. So a lot of times, whether it's town hall meeting or the office hours we had at the resource fair, it causes us to send our people out to the community to figure out what we need to learn and what we need to do better.
And you were on Arthur Avenue yesterday, right? You talked about small businesses a little bit and helping them out. How can the city help you small businesses out in our neighborhood, especially in Arthur Avenue, where there's so many family businesses there?
Well, they're wonderful family businesses on Arthur Avenue. And look, all Bronxites should be proud of Arthur Avenue. It's one of the jewels of the Bronx, and it's just an amazing place. And I enjoyed everything I ate yesterday, and I probably should have stopped a little sooner.
Do you have a favorite?
The cannoli. I love cannoli, and a really good cannoli is hard to find.
It's true.
As I said, Madonia Brothers Bakery does it right. They fill the cannoli right there. It's not pre-filled.
It's not in the refrigerator.
That's a sin in my point of view. So they do it the right way. They're one of the best in New York City, so that made my day. But I think in terms of Arthur Avenue, it's the reduction in the fines. We were there with Frank Franz, who is one of the business leaders in Arthur Avenue, used to run the Business Improvement District, and he talked about how different it is than a few years ago. In the previous administration, there was, unfortunately, there was a fining blitz. Everyone knew it, to make revenue for the city, and a lot of businesses got fined very unfairly, small things, very arbitrary things. We've reduced fines on small businesses by 40%. It's millions and millions of dollars back in the pockets of small business owners. That's been something that's really been recognized and felt by a lot of small business owners, including on Arthur Avenue. But we're doing a lot more than that. We're making it easier to start a new business, particularly a restaurant. We're increasing the number of contracts for minority and women-owned businesses. That's largely smaller businesses, making it easier for them to certify so they can get those contracts. That's been a big focus in the Bronx, increasing the number of certified MWBEs. So these approaches are having an impact, and we're going to keep deepening them.
And I know a big issue for you has been affordable housing, especially here in the Bronx, where they really need, especially with all the development that's going on.
Sure.
How do you balance affordable housing and then also making sure that the rent doesn't go up for the people that have been here for a long time?
This is a fundamental question. A lot of people, I don't blame them, look at new development and they say, wait, that's going to raise prices for everyone. I would argue that we need to recognize that development is natural in the history of New York City. It's not always good, but it is natural in a free market economy. There's going to be times when there's a lot of development. There's going to be times, sometimes when there's not development or even a reduction in investment. We've seen that in our history too. The Bronx went through a very painful time when people stopped investing in the Bronx, started leaving the Bronx. So you got to understand anything can happen on either end of the spectrum. What I say is, since we know development will happen, how do we control it? How do we put appropriate limits on it? How do we make sure there's affordable housing as part of the development? Well, we passed a law with the City Council, and it was the most progressive legislation anywhere in a major city in the country. Requires developers who would get a permit from the city to create either 25% or 30% affordable housing as a condition of being able to build. If they don't provide the affordable housing, they can't build. So that's a way of taking the private market forces and bending them to the needs of the people guaranteeing we're going to get a share for the people and everything that happens. The same when we do rezonings. There obviously have been some rezonings talked about for the Bronx going forward. That's when we look at a whole neighborhood. We change some of the rules around how high the buildings can be, what conditions you can develop under. In that process, we also ensure a lot more affordable housing. We do a lot of improvements for the community, maybe it's parks, schools, whatever are the primary needs for the community. We're looking at doing some of that in the Bronx as well, but again, that's when we, the public sector, get to protect the people's interests by ensuring some real ground rules for development, by ensuring some guaranteed give backs to the community that affect people's lives. So the answer is that, yeah, there's going to be development. It can come with some very good things for the community too. It can come with more affordable housing, not just what people perceive to be rising prices. But I always say, if we don't intervene, if we don't do something to shape that development, it will happen anyway. And in some cases, it will raise the rent without giving something back to people. I much prefer to have the government right in the middle of the equation to ensure the public's interest.
I just want to get one last question
Sure.
real quick. We asked people on Facebook if they could ask you a question. What would it be? Obviously, the gamut. It's posted.
Everyone in the Bronx has their own opinion. I get
true.
that strong view. Was it 1.4 million different opinions, right?
100% true.
Yeah.
A lot of people talking about infrastructure and, of course, the subways. I know the state's more involved with MTA.
Yeah.
Is there a way to alleviate some of the stress for the people here as far as the subways go, and then as far as driving here could be very difficult, especially
Sure.
with the potholes and the development. Maybe you could just touch on that real quick.
I think that's two very different issues. On the driving, we have the biggest repaving effort going on in the history of New York City. We're at the all-time high of how many roads are being repaved in a single year, and I think in many neighborhoods of the Bronx, people are seeing that. They're going to see a lot more this summer. And that's on top of filling, over 1 million potholes. So we're going to keep trying to improve the roads for folks who do drive. Now, I would argue to everyone, we've got to get used to, as New Yorkers, getting out of our car as much as possible. So we're constantly trying to improve the mass transit options all over the city. We have the new ferry coming in Soundview next year, which is going to be great for that community. We have select bus service that we've worked with the MTA to add in certain communities. We're trying to increase the number of options so people can get out of their car. Car sharing is another great idea. So when people need to use a car, they do, but only for that period of time, and they don't have yet another car on the street taking up a parking space. So I'm going to argue that there's a lot we can do to make it easier not to use a car to begin with. On the mass transit piece with subways, I always say, and it's finally become clear in this last week or two, the state of New York, the governor of New York control the MTA. I would love to control the MTA. That's not the way it's structured. It's structured to give all the power to the state and to the governor. The governor did step forward this week and I think sort of caught up with that reality a little bit more and finally said he would take full responsibility for the delays and the problems at the MTA. But we still need to see the MTA do a lot more. It's got about a $16 billion annual budget and tens of billions of dollars more in capital spending it makes. I always say MTA's got to get back to basics. Number one thing they do is New York City subways. They do stuff all over the region, but the number one thing is New York City subways. Number one problem in New York City subways is the delays.
Right.
That's where the money should be focused, not on all sorts of other things that may be good things, but they're not as important as helping the 5 or 6 million strap hangers who ride the subway every day get where they're trying to go. We still haven't seen that plan from the governor and the MTA, but we're going to keep pushing for it.
Great. Mayor, thank you so much.
You're welcome, man.
Appreciate it.
Pleasure.